Hello, dear viewers, and welcome back to Kingdom Principles with Reverend Dr. Polk. It's glad to be back. Hope you've been blessed. So, today let's talk about discipline and the fear of God. We're going to look at the story of Eli, the high priest, and his two sons, Hophni and Phinehas. Now, this was in the time of the judges, just before Israel started having kings. So Eli was the priest, the high priest, and his two sons, of course, were officiating priests also under him. Eli was a servant of God, but his sons, the Bible describes them as scoundrels. They were doing some very wrong things in the house of God. When people came with their offerings, their burnt sacrifices, they would insist and take the meat before it is cooked, which they didn't need to do. God had instructions that they should burn off the fat. They would sometimes insist and take the meat when the fat had not yet been burnt, acting greedily and disrespectfully to the commands of God, forgetting that at the end of the day, that meat was still their portion. They were still going to get it. But they couldn't respect the ordinances of God to wait and get it at the right time and in the right way. That was showing disrespect to God. And they were also seducing the women who worked at the temple. So God saw this as very grave indeed. And Eli spoke to his sons, but they wouldn't listen to him. Now, God sent a prophet, a man of God, to warn Eli. And the man of God warned him and said, because of this sin that your sons are committing, they are disregarding Yahweh. There's going to be a curse on your family. Your sons are going to die on the same day. And your family line, people will not live to ripe old age. Imagine that. That was a terrible curse. Now, after this man of God came and went, things continued as usual. His sons kept on doing what they were doing. Now, there was little Samuel who was living with Eli in the house of God. Samuel was not his biological son, but he was a son of Hannah and Elkanah. Hannah and Elkanah didn't have children, and she prayed to God in the temple for a child, and God granted her request. And she had promised, if you give me a child, I'll give him back to you. And so she kept her promise and gave the child to serve in the temple, and that was Samuel. And so God also spoke to the little child Samuel in the night. He called Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel finally got to realize it was God speaking to him, and God gave him a message that warn Eli that those the prophecy, the curses I said will come upon him because he has failed to correct his children. He has failed to discipline. That was what God said, to discipline his children. And it so happened that the Israelites went into war with the Philistines, and they decided to take the ark of God with them because they wanted the presence of God. Now, they didn't ask God if they should do this. They just decided to do it. And so Eli's two sons, Phinehas, they took the ark of God, since they were the priests, and they carried into battle. And unfortunately, they lost the battle. They were killed, his two sons, as well as other soldiers. And the ark of God was taken. When they came and told Eli this news, he wasn't all that surprised because that was the prophecy that had come, that his sons would die the same day. He wasn't expecting the ark of God also to be taken. That was the presence of God. He, as the priest, was responsible for the ark of God, to be taken care of, to be kept. That was a symbol of their covenant with God. Imagine such a huge responsibility and it being lost under his watch. When he heard that, he was very fat and old and sitting on a chair. He fell back, in shock, and unfortunately broke his neck and died. So it was a very sad situation. And one of his son's wife was heavily pregnant at the time. When she heard the news, she went into labor, delivered a child, and called him Ichabod, meaning, the glory has departed from Israel. and she unfortunately died also. So it's a very tragic story. And this could have been prevented if Eli's sons did not do what they did, or if Eli succeeded in disciplining his sons. Yes, he did speak to them, but there's a difference between correction and discipline. Discipline entails punishment also when necessary, and it's not always easy to mete out punishment. You see, discipline is very important to turn the wrongdoer from his crime. We are told in Proverbs that a child who is not wise and who does wrong things is a disgrace to their parents. And that's very true. So it's a responsibility of parents to discipline their children. Because when you do, you put them on the right track and you prevent turmoil from coming their way. Discipline can be hard, but we need to remember it's a responsibility and a necessity. If you love that child, you must discipline them. Also, we see that the sons of Eli disrespected God. You know, you can sin against a man, ask for forgiveness. God may even intervene if you ask for his help, when you're repentant. But when you disregard God and you are insolent towards God and you've been corrected and you keep on doing, who will intercede for you? So we need to be careful not to be insolent towards God, because God is the greatest of all. We need to learn to have reverential fear of God and to respect and to honor God, because he deserves it. And every king deserves his honor. What more of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords? So let's learn from this story that discipline and the fear of God are important parts of our lives. Be blessed.